think European companies are the ultimate moral saints and that American corporations only care about cold, hard cash? Well, think again. Today, we're tearing down the illusion of corporate PR to reveal who actually brags, who stays completely quiet, and most importantly, why. Trust me, once you see this data, you're never going to look at a company website the exact same way again.
So when you hear the phrase corporate social responsibility, who pops into your head? You probably picture these European companies just obsessing over the environment, right? You kind of just assume they're morally superior. Well, the truth is actually about to slap you right in the face. Because when it comes to showing off good deeds, Europeans don't even come close to Americans. Seriously, not even close. And look, the data absolutely does not lie. This landmark study published in the super prestigious Journal of International Business Studies totally exposed the truth behind multinational PR. These researchers, Magnan and Ralston, they wanted to know who is actually shouting the loudest, and even more importantly, do their actions actually match their words? All right, let's dive into Section 1, stripping 400 official websites. So the methodology here was absolutely brutal but brilliantly simple. I mean, scraping corporate websites back in 2002, that was groundbreaking stuff. Here's how they did it. Step 1. Target 4 massive economies, the US, the UK, France, and the Netherlands. Step 2. Literally scrape the homepages of 400 corporate giants. And Step 3. Analyze every single work. They basically judged these massive corporations entirely by what they desperately wanted you, the consumer, to see. And wow, the data gap is just massive. American and British companies practically scream through a megaphone about their good deeds. They are literally obsessed with telling you how much they care. But then you look at the French and the Dutch, total, absolute silence. They barely even mention social responsibility. So you gotta ask, why the insane contrast?
Which brings us to Section 2, motives. Faith, money, or fear.
Okay, let's go ahead and translate some corporate speak into plain English, shall we? American companies, they love to claim their motive is value-driven. Translation, being a saint is just in our DNA. The Brits, on the other hand, are brutally honest. They cite performance, which basically translates to, hey, doing good makes us money. And the French and Dutch, they only really act when stakeholders start to complain. For them, it's all about relieving outside pressure, not answering some higher calling. Get this, 58.5%. Yeah, over half of the American companies surveyed had the absolute audacity to claim that social responsibility is just an unshakable core value. Not profit, just pure, unadulterated goodness. Yeah, sure it is.
Moving right along to Section 3, action. The U.S. throws money while the EU obsesses over emissions.
So what does the actual American playbook look like? Well, it's basically throwing money at problems through philanthropy and volunteering. But the European playbook? It's more like sweep your own porch. They obsess over managing their own factory emissions and making sure their product quality is absolutely top-notch.
Let's break down those U.S. priorities. Philanthropic grants, employee volunteering, funding local education. American companies desperately want to be seen as local hometown heroes. So they focus on these highly visible issues that, honestly, have absolutely nothing to do with their actual business models. It's essentially a giant billboard strategy designed to buy public favor.
Meanwhile, European companies have a totally different fixation. Look at this. Over 70% of Dutch companies and 62% of French companies hyperfixate on one single thing: protecting the environment. No flashy community charity events. They're just laser-focused on making sure their factories aren't polluting and that their workers are safe.
So, Section 4. Why this huge contrast?
Here is the core psychological clash, the real aha moment. America expects its massive corporations to step up and act like community leaders. But in Europe, taking care of society is firmly the government's job. Over there, a corporation's only job is to just do business safely without breaking things. It all boils down to the welfare state. Because European governments handle social welfare, companies just don't feel the need to brag about charity. Doing good for the public is literally the state's job. So a company handing out giant charity checks isn't seen as heroic. Honestly, it's seen as weirdly out of place.
All right, final part. Section 5. Does bragging equal real charity?
Because a beautiful website definitely does not mean a beautiful soul. We have to point out the fatal flaw of this whole study.
The researchers only measured what companies typed online. They tracked the noise, right? Not the real-world impact. They were basically measuring the size of the megaphone, not the actual size of the charity check.
And to be fair, the researchers openly admit this limitation. They literally wrote, "The study does not investigate actual responsibility practices, but rather corporate communications." They were quite literally grading PR departments. So those high American scores, they don't necessarily mean higher morality. They might just mean better marketing teams.
Now, keep in mind, this data is from back in 2002, which really begs the question, in today's hyper-globalized world, have the fierce pressures of modern capitalism finally forced everyone to conform? Like, have those quiet European companies finally learned the aggressive American art of showing off?
So, the next time you click on a corporate About Us page and you see those glowing, heartwarming stories of community heroics, ask yourself one simple question. Are we actually praising good citizens, or are we just praising good marketing? Thanks for checking out this explainer, and I'll catch you next time.